and that way you guys can get out of here. I know it's late. Okay, so here we are, Justin's Lighthouse Thursday Night Family Group. It is April 27th, 2023. I'm kind of mixed a couple of topics tonight. I was looking through some of the old videos. Actually, it was one of the slideshows that you helped me with, Eric. It was learned helplessness. Every time, we encounter what we've encountered this past week, it's really a good opportunity to kind of isolate it and take a look at, because anytime, whatever, something happens or somebody leaves early, it's really us. I mean, that's what we do. Life gets a little hard. We get to a point where it's time to start getting honest with ourselves, and we start manipulating, all that stuff. And so, we're not passing any judgment, but there's some things to look at in ourselves so that we can keep growing, we can keep moving forward. We don't have to fail this thing. I say all the time, the only people that don't get it are the ones who quit it. And I know that's kind of corny, but and that's been my personal experience, has been my professional observation over all the years. I mean, it makes sense. It seems so simple, but a large part of that addict thinking is, I'm unique, and I've got a special set of problems, and so I have to have a special set of solutions, which is just denial and lack of self-awareness and no personal exploration. And if we have one person in our life that will allow us to remain the same, we will always take it. And it's unusual to see this dynamic play out amongst friends. Usually you see this play out with family member who isn't supportive. And then, so that's what we're going to talk about. What does help really look like? And you'll recognize yourself I think all of us will recognize ourselves on both sides of this. I can remember kind of becoming aware of this concept even as a child, where, maybe a family member or friend, or maybe even yourself, Christmas rolls around, and the one time a year we get together and we go down and we volunteer at the Jesus house. And we give gifts and we serve food, and everybody feels good about it. But then the rest of the year, we're not even thinking about it. It's not. We have to understand the difference within ourselves. We've got to be willing to explore this. The difference between what help should look like and relief. And as human beings, we can operate out of a sense of self a lot, even though it looks like we're giving of ourselves, when in reality it's more about a reward for ourselves. And so I'm going to kind of break that down, but you'll recognize the codependency in this dynamic. You'll recognize that learned helplessness, and understanding the difference between help and relief. Are we, I put the actual definition up there, so it can kind of go both ways when you talk about help. It looks good on paper, but, I've had this conversation multiple times this week. It's like, it doesn't mean that the outcome or our motives aren't good, or the things that we're actually doing aren't good, but at the end of the day, are we helping or are we hurting? And I'll let you think on that for a minute. Let me read this. And I added some different lighting, and now I can't even see, so I got to get my little flashlight out here. Okay, this is about self-protection. Wow, I need some new glasses. Okay, we once used our addictions to find comfort and help us cope with life's daily battles. In recovery, we may have become so focused on the battle at hand that we have neglected our basic physical needs. We may have forgotten our need to enjoy some of the sweet things of life. Failure to take care of ourselves can leave us weak and vulnerable. During a difficult battle, King Saul had declared, "Let a curse fall on anyone whose ears Oh, sorry. Let a curse fall on anyone whose ears before evening. I'm sorry, eats. Okay, let me start over because I want you to understand. Let a curse fall on anyone who eats before evening, before I have full revenge on my enemies. But Jonathan had not heard his father's command, and he dipped the end of his stick into a piece of honeycomb and ate the honey. After he had eaten it, he felt refreshed. But one of the men saw him and said, "Your father made an army take a strict oath that anyone who eats food today will be cursed. That is why everyone is weary and faint. My father has made trouble for us." My father has made trouble for us all, Jonathan exclaimed. A command like that only hurts us. See how refreshed I am now? When we are in recovery, we already feel deprived. We need to make sure that we are being good to ourselves in healthy ways, eating good food and tasting some of the sweet things that life naturally provides. Recovery isn't a time for unnecessary deprivation. If we become too hungry physically or emotionally, we find that we are weary and less able to fight the battles we face every day. And that's in reference to 2 Samuel 13. Okay, that was kind of a long one, but it reminds me of the acronym HALT. Everybody hears this in early recovery, HALT. HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Which isn't just a recovery thing. I guess that's been around a long time, but recovery has adopted so many of these things that are really just good life suggestions. If I'm hungry, eat. If I'm angry, identify it, talk about it, process it. If I'm lonely, I need to get around people. If I'm tired, I need to rest. And part of that self-exploration is recognizing, why am I hungry? Am I hungry because I've worked all day and now it's time for dinner? Or am I hungry because I'm not eating when I'm supposed to be eating? We're masters of, we're so feelings driven that in addiction, we'll just go until we pass out. What time is your bedtime? I don't have, whenever I fall asleep. What time is your meal time? Whenever I feel like it, whenever I'm hungry. And so it's not just enough to follow the, if I'm hungry, eat, if I'm tired, sleep. You might want to look at some deeper issues because there's probably some things going on. Okay, so I already kind of laid out the overview. I recognize this in myself too a lot. There's so many times that we believe that we're helping, but really it's a feel-good thing. We talk about this so much with codependency, and of course that's at play. But really being able to understand the difference when you're in those moments, when you have someone that you care about. It could be a stranger too, but do we, you see a guy on the corner and you give him $5 or whatever, $20. What's the motivation? This is something I have to really be honest with myself about, because I can give a guy $5 and feel like I've done my deed for the day, which is wrong thinking, right? It's not about me. But that's the whole point. It's not that we don't have these characteristics, it's how dangerous it can get, especially when we believe we're helping very sick people. So here's what tends to be at play, just these 4 little bullet points. When we're helping, oftentimes we're really just seeking a sense of control in that situation. Or it makes us feel special, the helper, makes us feel important, makes us feel like the hero. We want to save the day, and that's not unusual. There's an actual diagnosis, the savior complex or the messiah complex. You all have probably heard that. It can get that extreme where we really believe that we're just this amazing altruistic soul, and it's our job to go through life just helping this and helping that and helping this and helping that. And that can be a good thing if it's not in a codependent way. Where's that where's that boundary? I think, Jalen, that's what you were kind of talking about the other day with me. Where do we know where that boundary is? And so we're kind of end on this with a solution to know, or at least have a better understanding of how we should move forward when we're dealing with somebody who's not doing so good. The actual definition of help is to making it easier for someone to do something by offering one's services or resources or talents or skills. I work better over my right shoulder. Sorry. I'm not being antsy. I'm just trying to get a better position. So think about that. That sounds like a good deal. And we can really do this. We can have a lot of skills and resources and services and talents, and we offer them to someone else to help them do something, whatever that is. That's just a textbook definition. And in that, we can help them continue on a path that's not so healthy. We can use our resources and our skills and our talents to help someone stay on the exact same path that they're on. That's not actually helping. I mean, that's not a healthy help, but it offers relief. Now, for the addicts in the room, flip that around. We have come to rely on that, right? We've needed, throughout our own historical dysfunction, we have required many little exchanges of relief. I need relief, and didn't even realize it. We can have the best intention. Of course, we talk about that pattern all the time. We'll go through a difficult period, and then in our own minds, we actually believe, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm not going to do that anymore, I got to get my life together, I just need this and that and this and that. And decisions tend to get made around that emotional reasoning, what feels the best for both parties involved. And so that's why so often we have received a lot of help, but then we repeat the pattern. And there's some very specific, very simple things we can do, just kind of rearranging some of our old ideas about helping can make a world of difference. For those of us who want to have a new way of living, don't wait for the people in your life to get it right. We have to recognize the things that we should be doing differently and be willing to take on those responsibilities. Other than that, we just stay stuck in the learned helplessness. And that's a big one too. It kind of sounds pathetic when you think about learned helplessness, but in reality, that's such a big part of our dysfunction. We literally learn how to be helpless, how to become helpless, and then we get stuck in it. Relief is, here's I didn't put this on the board, but here's the difference. Help is, I'm in a situation, I may feel this, I may feel that, I may need this, I may need that, but history would dictate I'm not really sure how to move forward. So asking for and receiving help is really more about seeking counsel. Right? What would you suggest? And I'm not talking about your best friend that you can easily manipulate, or the people in our lives that we can easily manipulate. But when we're rarely asking for help, we tend to really just be asking for relief. Relief is I have a lot of anxiety. My head is about to explode. I've got this crisis. I've got that crisis. And if you could just make those go away so I don't have to feel bad, then I'm good. And we're good at manipulating that too. We manipulate that when we don't even recognize we're manipulating, because it's so ingrained in the way we think and the way we behave and the way we react to specific situations, such as our own emotions. So a relief is, I just need you to solve my instant emotional problem, right? If what you do next will make me feel better, then that's relief. Help brings to bear some personal responsibility. It brings to bear something that would lead to change. It brings to bear a requirement on the person who's receiving help to actually do something different. Everything else, because then you can start moving toward a different outcome. Everything else is just little interventions of relief, and so that's why we can get so far into our dysfunction. And we've received this kind of help, and we've received that kind of help, and we've gotten this thing taken care of, and we got through this other thing, and yet we continue to repeat the same patterns. Right? Those patterns are everything. That's why we, like when we're doing group, we break that down a lot, so you really can recognize your own patterns. At the moment where you thought this thing, and the moment you engaged in that thing, so that you can begin to recognize how distorted our own thinking is. So what ends up happening when we're seeking relief is, and just for the sake of reference, I just kind of referred to the person getting help as the sick one. We use all of our characteristics to manipulate the helper. So it depends on who we're seeking help from. If it's, if it says my mom, well, I can manipulate her with my emotions. I can manipulate her with this sense of discomfort. When we talk about that all the time, we can really trigger, mama bear's instincts. And so I can present my situation in a way that I'm the victim of some injustice, right? Somebody's being mean, somebody's not being fair, somebody's demanding of me something unrealistic, somebody's preventing me from, and that's all that we have to say. We don't even have to give details. And boom, then the other person can step in and just literally take it over, so none of us have to feel bad. And that's such a big part of our sickness, like in addiction and alcoholism. We have developed a manner of thinking and behaving that we don't even see. It's been part of us for so long. So if it's not mom, maybe it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, or we can do it with strangers. We can manipulate, the being at the store, and oh gosh, I didn't know it was that much. The thing said it was whatever, and I only have $1.50, and oh, it's okay. I got 10 cents for you right here. That's a manipulation. I'm not saying you can't legitimately have those experiences, but you have to really pay attention to how we manipulate. And this is my favorite one. When this dynamic gets so embedded in the relationship with the helpless and the helper, very few words need to even be spoken. Right? We can do it. All we have to do is just present a negative body posture, or just pout, or just come in the house with our head down and dragging our feet, and what's wrong? I don't want to talk about it. And then that's it. You can be it. Sometimes we need a little bit, maybe we need a couple more syllables, but basically it's like caveman talk. We just, here's my problem, and that I'm in distress because I'm presenting in a very physical way I'm in distress. We don't even have to ask for help a lot of times, because, and of course we don't even know what to ask for. All we know is something's not going our way, and we need somebody else to make it better. But what ends up getting made better is just some instant gratification on an emotional level. We can all feel better, but until we are required to do something different, to actually make an effort to do things differently, nothing will change. I think one of the most valuable tools, and again, I'm not trying to put you on blast, but we've been talking about a couple of things the last couple of days, but that deprivation, that's the most powerful thing. One of the most powerful things we can start to establish in early recovery is this sense of, or this idea that it's okay for me to go without right now. In fact, that's a really good thing. Whatever that is, it's okay for me to not have a phone for a while. It's okay for me to have to sleep on somebody else's pillow. It's okay for me to not get every single food item that I live on. It's okay to eat, whatever, drink 2% milk when I'm used to whole milk. It's okay to be willing to deprive ourselves, which is, that just shows you how deeply sick we are. We can get really hung up on these things that make us feel okay. But it's okay to go through some things where we just have to give some stuff up. And you'll realize very quickly, of course, it really starts working stuff out in you. It starts giving you a genuine sense of yourself versus requiring things from outside of us to bring us whatever, safety, security, satisfaction. That's what's missing in this interaction between the helpless and the helper. Let's come over here to this dynamic. In learned helplessness, I'm trying to think of like a really dramatic example, but maybe we'll just keep it simple. Probably something that you can immediately recognize in yourself. And gosh, it could be so subconscious. If you have some sort of experience where paying your cell phone bill, your cell phone bill is late, and you just realize it, and you don't have the money to pay it, and but you're not even thinking about it because you're used to someone else doing it. And then mom calls and says, well, that's not our responsibility anymore. Don't you remember a couple of months ago we talked about you were going to take that over? And we're so accustomed to doing for other people, doing things for us that we should do for ourselves, that it becomes an expectation. Or believing, like the actual description on the board, it's when we stop trying to improve our own situation because we really believe that we're not capable. And that's a really dangerous part of it, when the helper believes that also. When the helper believes that we are incapable of doing things on our own, then both parties can get stuck in that. And I recognize that in my own life, and I've seen that in a lot of different ways. It might be, hey, while you were in rehab, we went through your mail and we took care of this thing, we took care of that thing, and we're going to handle this, we handle that. And basically we can get everybody in our life literally taking care of our own business, and that's not a horrible thing, but when we're not required to make any effort with it, that's repeating the same cycle. That keeps us in a state of learned helplessness. And the helper, which could also be you, we all have relationships. You can be the helper in some of your other relationships where you're just going to go in and just take it all over. And what's at the core of that is really believing that the person's not capable of it. And the helpless, can even start to believe it. I don't know. I'll give you a great example. Another gentleman named Eric, a long time ago, as an adult, he had never gotten his own electricity on. And which just because he'd always lived with somebody else, or his parents took care of it, or whatever, or he was married for a while, but someone else had always taken care of things. And in recovery, he was going to get his own place. And he shared this with me one day, that he was really struggling. He was starting to panic. Now, this is a guy who was like a project foreman for a construction company. He had a very responsible job. He was highly skilled in the construction field. And yet, when it came to something that he'd never personally done before, he was panicking because he wasn't even allowing himself to think about it. It was just that automatic, oh my God, I don't know how to get the electricity on. I don't know how to get the electricity on. But he did what we always ask: talk about what you're thinking about. And he's actually still a good friend of mine today, and so I talk to him all the time. And fortunately, he picked up the phone and he called and he said, I don't know, I've never done this thing before. but what do you think is required? I don't know. Well, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that, and the next thing you know, he's picking up the phone and he's calling the electric company. He's got electricity, but I just tell that story because we can all get stuck in this wrong idea that we are helpless. Especially, I mean, it can be very devastating, I think, as an adult, as we get older. It's okay, just like deprivation, going through a period of deprivation. It's okay that we don't know how to do some things. But the minute you convince yourself that you're not capable of learning, you won't grow through it, right? And so that's why I say, as people in recovery, don't sit back and wait for everyone else to make us do it on our own. Just start taking care of things on your own as best you can. And the number one thing in recovery is don't be afraid to ask for help, right? We don't have to figure it out. All I have to do is ask for help. But that is what's missing in a real learned helplessness dynamic. And so this learned helplessness usually gets reinforced by the helper, who also believes I can't trust that to him yet. He won't, he's just going to screw it up, so I got to take control. Remember, in our helping, a lot of times it is about our control. Yes, there can be a positive outcome, but so much of it can also be centered on our need to control. So we talk about this different examples when we're talking about codependency. Staying up late one night and doing your kids' homework because you're afraid they're gonna get a bad grade, and they were too tired from whatever basketball to do it, so we'll stay up late and do it. Every once in a while, I guess that's not a bad deal, but we can also be establishing some patterns, and you got to think about what's it really about. If you're doing the same things over and over and over and over and over, you might want to look at the pattern, the motivation. Is it really about helping the other person? Am I empowering them? The old expression, am I just offering fish every day, or am I helping them learn how to get their own fish? And I think that gets harder and harder, especially with kind of the world that we live in. Everything can go so fast, and deadline this and deadline that. And sometimes it is easier. I don't have time to teach. I just have to step in and do it. And I get that. I'm a parent too, and sometimes it's easier just to do it, and we'll have a teaching moment later. Just make sure those teaching moments that you hold off for later actually come around. We can do it with ourselves also. And here's some more. Here's more part of the dynamic on the helper side. And this is actually straight out of the Savior Complex stuff. But don't reject it. There's some interesting things that we should all be willing to explore a little bit. And part of our need to maybe overhelp. That maybe that's a good visual. Maybe I'm an overhelper, because it can feel noble. Okay, I'm gonna share you a funny story. It feels good to save somebody else. Of course it does. It can feed our ego. It's a dopamine release. It feels good to save somebody else. Remember, I'm not saying it's not okay to help anybody. I'm saying that we got to look at can be negative aspects of it. Are we helping, or are we hurting? We typically can lack boundaries. So there's no separation between us and them, also known as enmeshment, where we're just overlapping. We're literally living their life for them, and they're not required to do anything, but we'll take on the role of doing everything so that they can continue to do nothing, or whatever the dysfunction of it. Also typically have a history of taking responsibility for other people, and tend to be very reactionary, which makes us easily manipulated. The helper, we can be very reactionary. So there's a conditioning. I'll tell you this story. this is about like the hero aspect of it. You know, it feels noble. One night I was going home, and it was late. It was probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm driving up Hefner Parkway, and a car had just had a major wreck. I don't know what happened, but like the whole bumper was in the highway, and the thing had spun around and slammed into that cable in the middle, and there wasn't even a cop on the scene yet, and I was like right behind it. And so I pull over, and this, what I was thinking about was this huge bumper in the highway, and I was waiting for someone else to come in the dark and just smack right into it. So I was going to at least try to get the bumper out of the road. But I'm thinking, you know, okay, here's my opportunity to help. I'm going to be a hero. Cop pulls up, and he immediately, you know, on the other, in the median where the car ended up, and he looks back at me, and there was some distance between us. There's probably at least 150, 200 feet. And he yells back at me, you know, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to help. And he's like, I don't need your help. Get in your car and get out of here. And it was very humbling. And it was like, okay, wow, so maybe I'm not that important. And that's a good thing. That's okay. The cop had it well at hand. I don't know if anybody was hurt. I don't think they were. I was a little concerned how they were going to get all the car parts out of the road before somebody else ran over them. But he said he didn't need any help, and so I had to accept that and move on down the road. You know, at the moment, it felt like, you know, my tail between my legs. But what was my motivation? Was I really caring about the safety of the person in the car? Was I really caring about the safety of the people that were coming in the dark? And the honest answer is probably a little bit of both. Part of me probably wanted that story for the next day. It was going to sound really cool when I came and I told the group, hey, I was a hero last night. And part of me was a genuine desire to help. And I think, and this was a long time ago. This was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And I think about that a lot when we talk about these conversations. You know, am I being driven by this self-centeredness? Is there a reward in it for me? And it's okay if there's a reward in it for me, but never lose sight of there needs to be a healthy empowerment for the other person also. You know, we're humans. Of course, it feels good to help people. I think that's why we have that instinct. It's good because we can't live without each other. But we can get into an extreme situation where we're not helping anymore. We're literally just making a way for the person that we think we're helping to just have little interventions of relief, but no change. Relief, no change. Empowering help. So here we're kind of zipping right into the solution part of it. So how do we know how should we be thinking when we're faced with an opportunity to help others or to be helped? Ask questions. Remember, one of the first parts of this is reactionary. It's, oh my gosh, this person's in distress. What do we need to do? And our focus is on the feeling part of it. What do we need to do so they don't feel what they're feeling? What do we need to do so that I don't feel what I'm feeling? And so much of our focus gets tied to changing the feeling rather than anything more productive. So we ask questions, you know, slow down. You know, that's one of the top 5 things in recovery. Slow down, get honest. And I'm obviously notwithstanding like emergency situations. We all tend to do pretty well in an emergency situation. We can get laser focused and solve a problem. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just this ongoing dynamic in which can consume our relationships, really. So asking questions, backing off, offering assistance towards what's right, meaning what's helping them. I think the second part is maybe even more descriptive. It really helps you understand some things. But What we don't want to do is blindly follow what the helpless person is requiring. It's like we talk about in addiction. If as an addict, if I could solve my own problems, we would have already done it by now, right? God knows we wanted to. Nobody wants to be an addict or an alcoholic. It's a miserable way to live. It robs us of any sense of esteem. It takes away any hope and dreams and ambition and motivation. It literally destroys us, from the inside out. And yet, we can't get away from it. So the last thing in the world that a helper should do is take the advice of the sick person. Right? We don't, in the addict, as a helpless, we don't know what should happen next. We only know how we feel and how we wish we could feel. So anything out of our mouth is going to be geared toward that, right? It's going to be geared toward relief. Well, man, if I could just get caught up on my car payments, if I could just get a new apartment, if I just didn't have this thing hanging over me, and wanting to help that person, we could be all in, and we can handle the affairs of that person to help them change their feelings. But many times we can lack handling things that will help them change their behavior. And of course, that's what recovery is all about, is changing behavior. The one thing we can control, which is our own behavior, changing that, and then everything falls into place. But this is a really good baseline to follow. I've heard this question many times over the years, like, well, how do you know, like in a spiritual context, how do you know that God's really talking to you? How do you know it's the right thing? In fact, you may have even used this one in the past to kid yourself. Well, I've been talking to God about this thing, and I really think it's God leading me to, quit my job and move to Minnesota, and I'm going to get on that dating app, and I'm supposed to be married by next Friday. And so how do you know, is it really God talking to you? Are you really doing the right thing, or are you doing the feelings thing? Well, because in recovery we learn how to measure our thinking against some standards. We have a new measuring stick, and your feelings are out of the picture. You can have your feelings, but they're not part of our measuring stick anymore. We have to follow some foundational principles. So when we're helping someone else, if it requires helping them break a commitment, or break a rule, or break a law, or go against, their own words. Their words now are not going to have any meaning, or it's just some sort of dishonest thing about it. And there's a whole thing here. We're going to dishonor somebody, or it's going to disrespect somebody, or it's going to help them avoid responsibility, or help them avoid some accountability, or remove from them the option of making an effort, etc., then that's pretty much your answer. But in the sick part of this dynamic is these are all the first things that go. Remember that discomfort. If I'm the helpless, and I just want to feel better, that tends to be, that's about 95% of it, is I'm uncomfortable and I'm not willing to tolerate some uncomfortability, so I need you to help me not have to feel uncomfortable. Well, it's interesting too, because, like in codependency, the enablers, or when we're enablers are like the most responsible people in our life, right? They would never engage in the way we engage, in behavior-wise. And yet, this emotional reasoning can take over this dynamic. And even though the helper may live up to these foundational principles, we won't require them of the helpless. Well, I know, but I'm talking about within reason, obviously, when someone's, say, at this level and they, but, in recovery or in codependency, we talk about that. How do you know the difference? How do you know what's okay? Only do for them, only help them with things that they're not able to do on their own yet. And I think that's where a lot of this gets distorted, like we were talking about. That's learned helplessness, is both parties believing that the person isn't capable of doing something. Well, I had to fill out that paperwork because they just weren't going to be able to do it. Did you test it? Did you try to see? Did you at least require an effort of them so that they could play it out? Or are you just making that assumption because they couldn't do the paperwork 6 months ago? So much of it is emotional reasoning. So, and that's the slowing down part. That's the asking questions part. That's the backing off part. Is try it again and see what happens. Try it again and see what happens. Of course, we see this in this environment all the time. We just witnessed a similar scenario with the gentleman that's not here anymore. The helpers absolutely were convinced that this person just didn't have the ability to do some things for themselves, even though we observed them doing that for 2 months. They absolutely could do it for themselves, but their friends didn't require it of him. And so when that dynamic, the conditioning of that becomes so powerful, nobody even has to say anything. It's like, oh gosh, person A is in distress and person B jumps to save the day. And we've all had a little bit of that. That's how we've kind of prolonged our own addiction, our own dysfunction, also put it that way. Now is the time where, as family members, we begin to recognize it. But like we've discovered, it's not just family members. Our friends can be enabling as well, but we are too. So we have an enabler, but we also tend to enable other things or other people in our lives. Take a look at that dynamic and recognize it. And here's some really good points to consider when you're dealing with another relationship. We're just human beings. Apply the same principles that you would to yourself to the other person within reason, appropriately. Obviously, a person coming out of stage 3 cancer treatment probably shouldn't drive themselves home. So we make a habit of doing things for people that they're not capable of doing in an empowering way. Don't just take it over. And if we want to get better as recovering addicts and alcoholics, don't wait for everybody else in your life to say, okay, here's the new boundary. You have to exert that boundary. You shouldn't want that. If you really want a new way of living, you shouldn't want that. You should want to be required to at least make an effort. So these are good questions. Am I helping them get better, or am I helping me feel better? That's a really good question to ask yourself. Am I helping them avoid consequences or responsibility? I think the scenario we were talking about yesterday in group was, taking a person out of rehab is like, it's like unplugging the IV and literally removing a cancer patient out of the chemo chair. Are we really helping, or are we hurting? Are we just trying to feel better? It's me on the highway thinking I'm gonna save the day by moving the bumper, and then getting struck upside the head with reality. The cop did not want, nor did he need my help, and he made it crystal clear. Okay, well, that's a good experience. I'm learning too. I'm still trying to grow in my recovery. Am I simply reacting, or have I sought counsel? Man, that's so important. That's a big one, and it certainly has been for me. too, and I know it is for you guys moving forward. Why is it so important? Because we've been going it alone for a long time, right? We've been stuck in our heads and stuck in our hearts and trying to solve this and trying to solve that. And we don't want anybody to know what's going on, and eventually I'll figure it out. We're afraid to be vulnerable. We're afraid that if we really open up and lay our cards on the table, in appropriate ways, I'm not gonna. You probably shouldn't seek counsel from, say, the hostess at the restaurant that you ate at for lunch. They may not have anything to offer, but we seek wise counsel. We just seek wise counsel, but that requires humility. The more humble we become, the more vulnerable we're willing to be. Am I moving them forward or prolonging the same pattern? And that's one of those points where denial can just take it over right then, because we may be in a situation where on an intellectual level we recognize we probably shouldn't be doing so much. We probably shouldn't help this person self-destruct, but then the denial will kick in because the reward can be so overwhelming. We need that reward. We will justify our own behavior with some crazy notion that eventually everything will work out. But right now we've got to bring relief. We've got to bring relief. At some point in the future, I'm sure things will start to change. But are you requiring change? Well, no, but we'll get to that. Eventually we'll require some change. What are we waiting for? We're all dying, and that's another big part. I know people don't like to hear that, but we have a disease that is literally killing us. And if it wasn't, we were watching that film yesterday, and unfortunately, the primary characteristics of addiction is bad behavior. So it gets viewed as a moral issue and a moral failing, and if we just get our head out of our butt. But even though the science is overwhelming that we are dealing with a brain disease, when people have cancer, they don't rob banks, they don't steal mom's car, they don't hang out at the crack house and burn the place down. So there are some characteristics that I certainly understand. But it's not about avoiding consequences or accountability, but we have to take it just as seriously, because in fact we're almost to the point where more people are dying from drugs each year than they are from cancer. In fact, I think we actually might already be there. I have to look at some numbers. Think about that. That's a lot of people dying, and yet when we're in the early stages of treatment or recovery change, we can take it so lightly. That's insane to me. So as a helper, somebody in that dynamic has got to be serious about it. Somebody in that dynamic has got to be realistic about it, because we can easily fall into the feelings game. Well, we look so much better and we sound better, and early on we can learn the recovery lingo. And we continue to manipulate, and we don't even realize we're manipulating. That's why I love seeing, the whole family's involved in this dynamic. And you're not always going to get that. Sometimes, for whatever reason, your family, they don't think there's anything for them to deal with or to learn or whatever, and that's okay too. That just makes your recovery people your new family. Right, you got to stick to them. Okay, we're actually surprisingly right on time. I don't think that's ever happened. But what do you guys want to share? What do you recognize on the helper side or the helpless side?
I'm so manipulative.
Wow.
I don't even
Okay.
realize it,
Yeah.
But I don't realize it when I'm doing it, but I can realize afterwards. But it's just something I learned from a young age.
Yeah.
That's why when you're saying something that's so embedded, I'm like, wow, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Because I do it without realizing it.
Yeah.
I know I can get what I want.
Like,
You know,
yeah. And that's,
kind of scary
yeah, it's very scary.
from just about anybody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Whether it's, girls can have their things, and especially with girls and daddies, but then we can carry it out into the world, and
Yeah.
just whether it's the eyes or the comments, or it can be a distressful issue, or just it's like you're an expert fiddle player.
Yeah. So everything you were talking about on the relief side was just spot on for me. Just how can I get some relief?
Yeah.
How can I not feel bad, or whether that's a substance or someone helping.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'm so glad you recognize that.
Yeah.
It's so far beyond just drinking and using.
Yeah.
And then in early recovery, since drinking and using's not on the table, you can quickly replace that with those other things. It's just compulsiveness.
Yeah.
Now maybe it's begin attention seeking or crisis building or whatever it is. Deprivation is everything. I think maybe that's what we're going to do group on tomorrow.
That's okay.
So that's where you're at now, allowing yourself to just be deprived of instant gratification. Practice that.
Yeah. I'm very bad at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So so tomorrow when you have an impulse, I think I'm going to run over here. I need to, whatever it is, hit the pause button and try to identify what you're actually feeling. Is it anxiety? Is it fear? Is it sadness? Is it loneliness?
It's usually anxiety or like boredom, and then boredom turns into loneliness, and then that's why those impulses come, and I'm not good at being bored or alone, So I've been trying to do things alone.
Have you ever heard what boredom means in recovery?
No.
You're thinking about yourself too much.
Yeah, absolutely, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I'm so bored, which is code for, I know I have a whole lot of responsibilities that I should do
Yes.
right now, but I don't want to do those. I want to be entertained.
Yep.
And the world isn't entertaining me, and I need you to entertain me.
Thanks for calling me out.
And so we just,
No, I mean,
it's everybody, right?
I think there's a bunch of problems with it too.
Yeah.
Especially with work. I mean, these days that wake up and I have like 20 minutes to get to work.
Yeah.
Just I really want to go.
Right.
No, I can call, tell them, something's happening. I got to find a babysitter, or
Yeah. I started doing that too.
Something else,
Yeah.
And a lot of this, I see myself, because the only way I can understand it is because I work so much. I apply all that to how I work, like, especially being a helper, just training somebody. Always going to have a type of sense of control. And when I see somebody struggling, I'll tell them back off a little bit, let me do it, and just stand there and watch me, and I'll show you how to do it real quick. You just, all you gotta do is just watch me. And, you never actually really had boundaries at work, because I was all over the place.
There's a lot of good stuff to that too. You're teaching someone else, but then at what point, how do you decide? Okay, they're ready to continue. I don't have to keep doing it. Do you recognize?
Yeah, it's usually after maybe after lunch rush or dinner rush, but I'll go back to them and sometimes some people may say I'm an asshole, but it's just, when you work at a restaurant, you gotta continue to push food out. You can't just stop and just like, hey, I need a break,
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta have somebody else behind you, or somebody else to help you. Hey, I'm gonna do this real quick. I'm gonna go outside real quick. I need a breather. But once I start to take a break and realize maybe I probably shouldn't have done that, or I start feeling kind of guilty sometimes too, because I know myself. I can be an asshole, like they say. But to me, my reality, it's not how I try to try to make it seem. It's just the way it comes out.
Yeah.
So, to me, it was just a bunch of sense of control, because me, I'm used to being, you know, kitchen lead, you know, just, you know, the people that they go to and ask, you know, hey, I need this, and you put it out real quick, you know, that, to me, I took on that responsibility, and I, you know, felt noble about it, and I felt, a lot of pride in doing all that, so, to me, trying to figure out what, I guess, what it feels good to, you know, actually asking for help,
Mm-hmm.
to help. That was, you know, it was the only time I'd always see when somebody needed help was when I knew they were struggling, you know, physically seeing them struggling, you know. So, I mean, it's kind of a subject, but.
No, because it's you're looking at both sides of it.
Well, yeah, when I'm at work, I mean, and it's kind of, I think that's why it's difficult for me to apply this to myself, you know, in my recovery.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there are times, you know, am I helping them improve, or, you know, or I'm just taking the responsibility for them. But that's how I am at work, you know. But usually, it's kind of, for me, it's hard to, you know, let somebody go out there and train them.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I'm just so overbearing, you know. I get that from my mother anyways. But, you know, it's a work in progress as I see it, especially now.
Yeah.
All that, I can apply it to me being at work, but if I apply it to me being here, it gets a little difficult sometimes. Like knowing when to ask questions, when to back off.
Yeah. And you can apply them in both ways. Just don't forget to apply it to yourself, you know, or explore it within yourself. I think, you know, we help. We're capable of helping in so many different ways, and sometimes some of the biggest help you can offer someone else is just to listen. We tend to be so reactionary because we're looking at how they're feeling, or we're looking at their body posture or the facial expressions, and that, you know, that need to rescue can kick in, and we don't need any more explanation. Just here, we'll take it from here. You know, okay, we talked to your boss, and they know you're not going to be there this week, and we took care of this, and we took care of that, and, you know, we just hand people their life on a platter. You know, we do everything for everybody, but then when it comes to ourselves, we won't do anything. Helpless.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, I can't speak for everybody else, but for me, it's incredibly hard to ask for help. And when I finally did, it was like empowering a little bit. I don't know. And then people were willing to help me, and it just felt better because I didn't think anyone would want to help me. You know.
That's classic shameful, like you didn't deserve help.
Yeah, and I was afraid of the "I told you so's."
Did you get any?
No, I mean, I perceived one. I bet maybe that's just how I perceived it. It wasn't straight on, direct. I told you so. Just the language for me made me perceive that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But for the most part, no.
So, live in the result. Okay, I did something that was important, and the result is I received help. And then all these little intangible things along the way. Yeah, but, you know, this person that, and this person that. Did you ask for help? Yes. Did you get help? Yes. Are you growing? Yes. Cool. That's what we're after.
Yeah.
Well, but there's this person, and there's that person, and there's this thing, and then there's that thing. We can get caught up on things that are insignificant.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, to me, that's the amazing thing about recovery, just the process of recovery. It's the same solution for all of us. We can think in our minds that we got a special set of situations, and I need a special kind of no. That's just what resistance looks like. That's that shameful, shameless. We're just scared to death for all kinds of different reasons. One of the things we were talking about earlier this week was, you know, if I really accept help, then I'm going to have to start doing something different. And maybe I don't want to do anything different. So, but still back to self, you know, the only people who don't get it are the ones who quit it. But like the big book talks about, there are those who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And everything else, I mean, that's it. That's where the solution lies. So it's as simple as we're either going to follow the solution or we're going to reject the solution. And of course, a lot of that early process is we resist it a little bit. I kind of like this, and oh, this is cool, and oh, wow, really, this really makes sense. But when it comes to making wholesale changes, we can resist a lot along the way. It's like manipulation. We resist when we don't even realize we're resisting. We manipulate when we don't even realize we're manipulating. So you mean, so when I come in from school or whatever, and I come into my mom's house and I drop my bag on the floor and I slump on the counter, that's manipulating? Yes, that's manipulating. Anything other than, hey mom, how are you? Yeah, that's, it's like, look at me, I'm in distress, and the conditioning can be so strong, we don't have to even say anything. We just have to present that we're in distress and somebody else will come running. And we can do the same thing in our own relationships.
However, I feel like I was taught manipulation. I feel like I've just seen that my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I learned.
Yeah.
So
And
it goes both ways.
That's very possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
I notice sometimes that we do it to ourselves
Yeah.
a lot that we don't even pay attention to.
Right. Yeah. That's funny. I was thinking about that earlier today.
And
Yeah.
to me, it was when I noticed it, it was just I don't know, kind of demeaning to me. It was like, really, and it was just just thoughts or thinking of negativity or sometimes even positive. You try to turn yourself around on some of the thoughts that, or something that happens. You try to turn yourself around on things. And
Yeah.
I've noticed I've done that a lot, and for me now it's easier to work on, but it's more the actions of the evidence, finding out the evidence of what I've been doing instead of not necessarily trying to show or prove myself to anybody, but find my own evidence of what I've been doing.
Right.
And that's what I've been trying to pay attention to lately. So
That's huge.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Yeah.
it's difficult to find, or difficult to remember, because most of the time you don't even pay attention.
Just write it down.
And just in that, we're just looking at that next 15 seconds. What needs to happen in the next 15 seconds for me to feel better or to not feel bad?
Yeah, when I heard you say that quote when I first got here about being bored, it just ate me up inside. I gotta think of something. I gotta do something.
Yeah.
Something's gonna happen. Something's gotta do something different. So
Somebody's got to do it.
Right.
Might as well be me.
I think in recovery, boredom is just not a word you use. I had to learn that too.
Wow.
But
I even
that's-
got to the point where I don't even try to use it anymore.
Yeah.
Head,
Oh, I'm so bored. Hit the pause button and really, play the tape through. Like they say, what do I really mean by that? I'm so bored. I'm restless. I'm getting anxious and irritable. What do I think is happening? Well, I'm not being entertained. Because there's no way, in any kind of situation, and certainly here, there's no way that we're ever in a position where there aren't some responsibilities we could be living up to. So when we feel bored, it's really us just completely rejecting our responsibilities. And so that's why, like in this environment, the best way to practice that is next time you feel bored, go down your list. Have I made my bed today? Did I brush my teeth today? Did I take my shower today? Have I eaten breakfast today? Did I read my thing today? Did I da? And then go and do one of those things, and all of a sudden you're not bored anymore. You're moving yourself into something that's esteem building versus waiting for the world to entertain you. Oh, I'm so bored. I just need this. I just need that. How come this isn't happening? How come that isn't happening? It's very sick thinking. We develop that in childhood. Oh, I'm so bored. I used to deal with boredom just by disappearing, like isolating. I just wanted to go and hide somewhere, not recognizing that. When you're 8, you don't know how to process this stuff, or just being very impulsive. Oh, let's go do this, let's go do that, let's go do that. So it's like I'll leave you with this little story. It's like this boredom that leads to impulsivity keeps us focused on feeling good, right? I want to feel good. And so sometimes we can even put in place some things that appear important. So, like, for example, it's like, I want to help people today. I'm going to go help people today. I'm going to go down to the shelter and I'm going to help them fix breakfast for 1,000 people and clean up and redo the beds or whatever. And I'm going to volunteer down there all day long, and I'll just feel so good about myself. And then I'm going to stop by the church on my way home, and I'm going to get the list off the bulletin board, and there's some people who need their yards mowed, and I'm going to go mow their yard. And you walk in around dinner time, you finally get home around dinner time, and you feel so good because you're just helping everybody today. And then the phone rings, and it's your boss saying, why didn't you come to work today? No, you don't understand. I was out helping all day. No, but your responsibility was to be at work. So we can even do really positive looking things and still be irresponsible. That's one of those things we've hidden behind. Well, no, look, but I did this thing and I did that thing. Yeah, but you were supposed to be doing this other thing. Big difference. It's all about growing. The more you explore yourself or this kind of stuff in yourself, you realize just how messed up our thinking is. The other day we were talking about distorted thinking. That's not even the right word. It is screwed up. And that's okay, because we can put it back together if we're willing to do something different. Okay, I'm going to shut us down, and we'll be back next week. This is all different now. Okay. Still getting the hang of it.